much took to the core, to our heart before we even started the idea. The first one is nature is awesome. It will inspire you, it will surprise you, and pretty much has gotten pretty far. And then simplicity breeds the ultimate sophistication. It's not necessary to build a really complicated system from one go. You can start with little pieces and then put them together. And all right, so let's talk about a little bit of the narrative used for the game, the idea, and for those who have read the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, this will sound a little bit familiar. But Earth and pretty much all of the versions of Earth in all across parallel universe have been destroyed. And unfortunately, the race that destroyed the Earth wasn't aware that Earth was part of a really big experiment from another race. So they pretty much destroyed 10 million years of experimentation by when they nuked out Earth to build the new intergalactic space rail. And in the brink of the universe coming down to a halt because of this mistake, some janitor found a bottle of tonical, which is a Mexican soda, and they realized that there's still enough DNA in that, human DNA in that bottle to reboot the experiment, so they pretty much reinflate the universe inside the bottle of tonical that is called the Toniverse. And then pretty much the scientifics of universal repute is sending their newly grads to the universe inside the bottle to evolve the creatures that pretty much make a supercomputer for the experiment. Alright, so jokes aside and narratives aside, the game design core loop, it's pretty much 3 activities that they are connected between them. It's explore, design, and observe. Exploring is about like exploring this universe or this space and finding planets. Planets are procedurally generated environments that provide different challenges to the creatures that the player designs. Which is our next activity, which is properly designing the phenotype of the genotype, of the creature, so that it can evolve into something that can solve the challenge of the planet. And then once you find a planet you like, and you design a creature that you think can survive that planet, you get to see them in action and actually surviving in this environment and interacting with it. Alright, so the art vision. So the original Polyminis look like this. The system pretty much spits out 2D blueprints. They're not blue. Blueprints of creatures, and pretty much the only important thing here is this white square that's going to be over there. But think of this white square as the head or the starting of the nucleus of the creature, where it starts getting created, right? And then really talented people, that is not me, started coming up with ideas of how we could interpret these blue squares. Pretty much the further they're from the center, the older they are, and then the closer they come to the center, they're newer. That was our first iteration. Then we started looking at them. They have to be top down. How do they animate? And then adding a little bit of personality to them, trying to add textures. All of this is supposed to be procedurally generated. So my art director probably hates me because of how many constraints I keep dropping on her about no, the simulation cannot do that, or your designs are way too symmetrical, and we cannot force the simulation to be symmetrical, and stuff like that. So this kind of exercise of breaking symmetry, that makes artists bitch a little bit. And then this is our current style. This is the background of our poster, and this is pretty much our target now. Roughly, these big blobs will be the white square, and then all the little blue squares will match these pieces. And then we are gonna embold or wrap it around, what we're calling plasma, or plasma would be the biological term. And then we connect everything using little coils because they look cool. And this is the UI HUD we're going for. It's heavily inspired by what we're calling derpy sci-fi, Rick and Morty, Douglas Adams, sport to a point. And the idea is pretty unintrusive UI. There's a lot of zen in the game. There's not a lot of competition. So the idea is to be really unintrusive, let the player explore and take it in, right? We want a really super full of stars background that we've been taking pictures from NASA as a reference. So that we believe nature is awesome and it will inspire you. And then the technical design, actually that slide is incorrect. Let me just real quick. We made an original commitment with Lumberjard because we believed the backend system of AWS was going to be awesome, and integrating it with Lumberjard as an engine was going to be super easy. Turned out it wasn't as easy as we thought, and also probably a bad risk assessment from the production team, aka myself. Because we believed that the server-side tasks were going to be difficult, and we wanted to use something like AWS and GameLeaf to help us. And then we would pay a little bit of a tax with Lumberjard, but since our application on the engine is really small, we thought we could manage it. After our first minute of work, after our first month, looking at production data, we realized all of our server-side tasks were like 30% ahead, and all of our non-server tasks were like 40 to 50% behind. So we decided to flip the switch and kind of match Amazon announcing that GameLeaf was going to be a separate product, so we could get GameLeaf anyway. So that happened. Although we did have to like drop a lot of work and redo it. But anyway, second time usually gets better, right? So now talking about sad stuff. Production update. The good, we're trending green after our change in engines, and with that we mean we're trending around our burn down or slightly better than that. We got a huge speed up once we changed to Unity. Our mentors, from being just like observers and consultants, started jumping into it because they felt much more comfortable. Our systems on the back end and also the few systems we have implemented on the front end are super robust. They are entirely data driven, so once they work once, we can just pump a bunch of data into them, so we can spawn millions of planets. And like right now, we will see one planet, but there's nothing barring us from like spawning millions of them just by the server side. So I mean, probably your computer would choke rendering them, but you know. The bad is our game has a lot of really complicated systems that we're hiding from the player, but as developers, we need to understand. Sometimes ramping up people in those systems eats up a lot of time. So every time we get a new guy, it's good because we might get speed up, but the original investment tends to be really heavy. So people coming in and coming out are probably the most expensive thing that can happen to us, and we kind of have that already. So. And then we believe we're around 1 week behind, so we're trying to cut scope and get more people in. And then the ugly Lumberjard was a pretty nasty situation. We had to scramble around it. And then we have several points where we have a single point of failure. We're a small team, so sometimes when the lead area is not around, we kind of block pretty badly. And however, the awesome is we have professional people, not non-students. Our two sound designers / composers are fully up and running as professional sound designers. We have 2 engineers that are not students, and then we have 4 artists that we just got signed recently. Pretty much one of the things that we got from the unit change is people saying, sure, see, it's not a weird engine that I have never worked with, so I can definitely chip in a little bit. And then our mentors, we have our 4 mentors that are like serious, and then a couple that are like around, and between everyone we almost have like 100 years of experience. So it feels good. They have helped us like cut scope and find our nuggets. But so yeah, I think the conclusion of the slide is we had some pretty turbulent times, but we're trending right now. And yeah, I think that's it. We can get rolling to the demo right now. Our webpage, polyminis.com, and if you have any doubts, questions, comments, polyminis.com, and that will be it most of the team. So we can see what is done. So right now, this is our space exploration scene. The texture in the back is a little bit blurry. It's supposed to be super like starful and stuff. It's just like standard. What can I show you here? All right. We'll come to that later. So the idea is here the player can, navigate space and approach planets. Once we're close to a planet, this is supposed to be like animation or something. We can like get into orbital approach where we see the planet closer to get some information about it. And so right now we're like only presenting like temperature ranges, pH ranges, and again this is all fed from like a procedural system. And then the features that can lead here. The idea is once a player reaches a planet, reads this top level information and maybe like interacts a little bit with some of the details, then he will decide to design a feature for it. So these are really UX friendly feature design, UI. And the idea is you have different sizes of what we call like splices, which are just like genetic pieces or like things that you could evolve, we can call it, like packages of things you could evolve. So let's say the player wants his creature to be like predatory and tropical, which is obviously some temperature resistances. Maybe you want it to be a cryophile or safe, whatever that means. And then anyways, so this is going to start filling up with colors, and that creates pretty much the genotype of the creature. That is everything that it could potentially evolve, but that doesn't mean it will evolve each one of those things. So let's say we're happy with this, and then we go back to our planet, and then we could seed the creature into the planet. That is not implemented yet. But imagine a button somewhere over here where it's like, do you want to send that creature to the planet? You say yes. Now the planet says the temperature is high, and then maybe you put into the genotype of this creature that it can evolve cold resistance. If you put that creature into a planet that is hot, it will not evolve cold resistance because it's futile. So that's a little bit of the dynamic. And then once you have created your creature, you are happy with it, you can go into a observation. So right now it's just spheres and cylinders, as everyone else. And that white bigger square, sphere, is the white square that I mentioned at the beginning. Is pretty much what is going to be the head. And each one of the circles is one of the pieces, and then it all gets wrapped around plasma. So if you use your imagination, it looks kind of cool. And yeah, right now they're just dancing like a synchronized dance. But each one of them is separately controlled by a neural network from the server. So that's what gets evolved throughout the like back-end simulation. And I think there's not much more. Yeah, so as I was saying, right now we just have one planet. There's nothing preventing us from populating this like infinitely. The camera doesn't really move for the player, so all the data is coming from the server. So we could have like infinitely sized planets on a really small, like actual event-driven scene, which is part of our planning in scaling the future, right? Now that I mentioned the word future, for us, the next thing is, I think right now we have a pretty good baseline on systems. Most of our systems are already pushing data as they should, are already consuming data as they should. Most of our server-side stuff is hooked up to a pretty decent MVP. The next step is just starting to actually pour big amounts of data through the system and see what happens and see where the cracks are. And then there's a lot of information that needs to be translated from buttload of data into like something game readable. So information architecture and UX are probably our biggest challenges again. And that's roughly it.
So when you're going through space like this, it's only on a flat plane. There's no up and down.
So there's no up and down because it makes it really disorienting. Like we tried that with our original prototype in Longer Direct, but we were not getting anything out of it. Even No Man's Sky kind of bolts you to not really doing like complete. But the idea, so answering your question, yes, it's just 2D. We want to do a little bit of like maybe like camera tricks to make you feel like you're like ascending, descending, but it's just gonna be great.
Yes. Good.
Yeah, I mean, we tried it. It's just disorienting. It's really hard, and suddenly you're upside down. You don't